Welcome back. If you spent the week somewhere at a spring break destination, hello. If you're watching online from a current spring break destination, I'm so excited for this one-off conversation that we're having today called Dream Team that feels very appropriately titled because of the cultural moment that we're in. I don't know if you'd agree with me. I think this is one of the most important days of the year where we live. Not St. Patrick's Day, although that's fun, but also because it is Selection Sunday. And so a few hours from now, 68 teams are going to find out if they've made the tournament for the men's, and a couple hours after that, 68 more from the women's. And it's actually really a cool year for the sport. I don't know if you've noticed this, but on Fox Sports, women have averaged more views than the men's sport this year. It's the Caitlin Clark effect over here, just like one of the greatest athletes we've ever seen. So it's a fun year. This is a reminder to fill out your brackets or set them up at work or whatever you do. That's all happening today, or pick your favorite mascots, however you do that. It's going to be a really fun week with the tournament starting. And that's not why we entitled the series this entirely. We're going somewhere else with it today. I personally am so grateful to be back with you guys because I actually got to take a lot of last month off to be home with my family because our personal dream team at home grew by one with the addition of Davis Andrew Geist here. And thank you. Thank you. When I hear an applause, I want to bring Emily out on stage. She's like, superhuman and deserves all that. But these are the pictures that social media will see, the highly edited, here's our happy family and all of that. Because you guys showed up in person, I feel a responsibility to be authentic with you. So every 3 hours or so, our world looks much more like this. This is his first bath, to be fair, but he also does that, whenever he wants to eat, have a diaper changed, or just remind us that he's alive, it seems like. And so that's a lot of our world right now, and I am loving it. It's frustrating as a communicator to not have the words to exactly communicate what it is that you're experiencing. But it's the craziest thing, to celebrate a human passing gas, and you put your face in the line of fire, right? Who else do you love enough to do that? It is just the wildest experience. Or it's hard to communicate, to hold somebody and say, I would literally be willing to die for you. And please be unconscious. Go to sleep, right? It's so weird to try to communicate that. I read a book and it said, one of the important roles of a dad is to mess with their child. I think it said play is important. I just interpret it as mess with their child. So I spent a lot of my time doing that. Tummy time, for example. Em has this great setup with a pillow and he supported and it supports his neck. The book just said lay him down on his stomach. And so that's what I did. That's how I mess with him. And I'm like, rise, son, and he's just like, Dad, I'm a potato. But it's just, this is a lot of our interactions right now. But it's just incredible. It also means that I am so sleep deprived, and this is my first sermon as a new parent, and if it's not making sense what I'm saying today, it is not you. It is absolutely me. There are parts of my brain that have just gone dark. I regularly walk into rooms right now and don't remember why I went in the room. Just a few days ago, I walked into our pantry, stared at the wall, and our dog nudged the treat box. I just went outside, help me, Dad. And I'm like, thank you. So this is kind of the world that I'm in a little bit right now. And I ultimately I'm so grateful to be back in the room with you. If you have a crying child in this service, know that it is normal, happens all the time. We usually just talk right through it. I don't know what my response will be today. I might have a trauma response. I might just ask if you need help. I'm not sure, but just know that is still normal. And a big part of the reason that I am so grateful to be back here with these guys is we felt so much support. We've felt so much love, appreciation for you guys. So many of you have been praying. And when I'm not at home with my personal dream team, we are here. We're a part of this bigger dream team. Our family is a part of this place. And so I do wonder for you, when you hear the term dream team, when you hear that phrase, I wonder what comes to mind. If you Google it, this is what comes up all over. This is the 92 Dream Team. And this was not just the first year in the Olympics that we had professional athletes at the Olympics, but is also 11 to 12 of these guys were Hall of Famers. So this was an exceptional, a special type team led by Michael Jordan, the second best player of all time. I mean, just an incredible group, right? And so this team beat everybody they played that year by more than 30 points, never even had to call a timeout, right? Just so dominant. And I like what Patrick Ewing said in his kind of summary of that year. He said, it was like the guys lost in '88, and so they sent in the Navy SEALs. We were the SEALs, the elite forces of the elite. We came in and we kicked butt, took names, and got everybody back home safely, right? I mean, it's just this really cool, exciting year for that team, for our country. And then 3 Olympics later, which is not a very big span of time when you think about how dominant that team. 3 Olympics later, one of the greatest disappointments in sports history was the 2004 team that lost not 1, not 2, but 3 games, one of them by 20 points. Despite getting a bronze medal, it was this huge embarrassment for the country. And so then in 2008, there was the Redeem team. Whole new leadership structure, all new coach. They constructed the team entirely different. They came back and they brought home gold again for the U.S. But there were a couple pillars of that team. I was reading an interview by Coach K, who is the leader of this team, longtime coach at Duke, one of the greatest coaches ever. And some of the pillars were there was new leadership, right? And that was important to this group. But it was a well-rounded team. It was the leadership lesson that talent alone was not enough. We needed the pieces to work together and play their role and buy into a bigger vision or a bigger purpose. There was a feeling that year that these individuals weren't just trying to show off their own talents and score the most points, but it was the idea of, I have a role to play. And amazingly, he convinced a bunch of guys that were the best on their middle school teams, their high school teams, their college teams, and the best on their own NBA teams to play a very specific role with a greater purpose in mind. We want to make our country proud. We want to prove something to the world. And they were, once again, the best team on planet Earth. Led at that time by a rising star, the greatest basketball player of all time, LeBron James. That was the 2008 team. There's so many leadership lessons, right, just in that little story arc, in that short kind of time period. But I wonder for you, have you ever been a part of any kind of dream team before? Have you ever been a part of a group of people that sacrificed and despite a diverse set of skill sets or personalities or backgrounds, accomplished something great together? Not all of us have. We all certainly are a part of all kinds of different teams in our life. I mean, just a few of them, maybe your family at home, your extended family, your work is a team. And when that is a great team, I mean, that has a huge impact on your life. Your community, your neighborhood, schools, perhaps, your hobbies. Whether you play sports competitively or you're an old man softball league or a poker group or a knitting club or whatever it is, you kind of form teams and groups together in those ways. And there are all kinds of different teams that we find ourselves in. In fact, I don't know that it's really possible not to exist amongst a group of teams. Today, what I would like to suggest or pose or just ask the question is, what if the church at its best looks like a great team? What if the church isn't designed to be a building or a steeple or a cathedral, but is made to look like an incredible collection of people sacrificing and unifying and buying in together? What if the church is really at its worst when it uplifts one individual, one talented individual? What if that's when it gets itself in a lot of trouble? What if it's best for the world and in the world when it's a collective unit? What I'd like to do today is I'd like to spend our time trying to convince you that if you are a follower of Jesus, you are designed to be a part of a team. And as a result of that, if you're new to church, exploring church, giving faith a shot for the first time in a long time, know that a lot of the language today is going to be geared towards people that have already made a decision to follow Jesus, probably more so even than a normal Sunday. But that doesn't mean that this conversation doesn't apply to you. My hope is probably twofold, at least for you. One is that we might paint a picture of what you probably think the church should be. Maybe it could be. Maybe you would have been a part of church longer if it looked like this in the past. At times in history, it has functioned at its best. My hope for you is this. I actually think the best way to explore faith and explore Jesus is in the context of other relationships. Side by side, other people that you trust. It's not just to sit in a row and hear about Jesus, but to volunteer and engage and be a part of a team. Now, for those of you that you would already say you're a follower of Jesus, my hope for you today, I want to be clear at the beginning of our time so that you don't think there's some kind of bait and switch at the end. I want to give you an opportunity to close our time, to take a practical step and join the team here at Northpoint. And as a result of that, I kind of want to communicate in two different planes, if you will, today. We are a local church. This is an expression of a local church. And so I want to talk about what some of the practical roles are, some of the practical teams that you might be able to be a part of that are the best fit for you. And I also want to communicate at kind of this other plane that in a bigger picture, if you're a guest, you're from out of town, you know you're moving in a couple months, whatever that might be, to say this is not just about practical roles to fill at one place. This is about a way of life that we have been called into in pursuing a relationship with Jesus. And so hopefully both of those two things are happening in parallel. I want to look at one of probably the best team builders of all time, not just of the first century. We see his work in the first century, but that's the Apostle Paul, who traveled the Mediterranean, establishing the first churches, setting up their leadership structures, coaching and encouraging churches that have already been established. And in one very unique passage, he gives us some vivid imagery. He utilizes a metaphor that is still alive and well today. If you've ever heard the church referred to as a body or the body of Christ, a lot of that language, that historical language, finds its root in this passage from the Apostle Paul. And he starts off 1 Corinthians 12, verse 12, this way to introduce it to us. He says, the human body has many parts, but the many parts make up one whole body. So it is with the body of Christ. It's a little hard to count how you break down how many we have. We have over 200 bones, over 75 organs, right? But we've got a lot of parts, and when you remove a non-essential part, it doesn't make you not a body, not a human. This is his point. When you place your trust in Jesus, you are part of the collective body. And he gives a breakdown of what some of those categories might be, those different parts. He says some of us are Jews, some Gentiles, some are slaves, and some are free. But we have all been baptized into one body by one Spirit, and we all share the same Spirit. Yes, the body has many different parts, not just one part. He brings up a socioeconomic status. He brings up an ethnic background. And his point is that however it is, you got to be a part of the team. Wherever you came from, whatever you have done, whatever gifts or talents you bring, when you place your trust in Jesus, we are unified under him. Despite all of our diverse backgrounds and opinions and experience, it is him. He is the great leadership at the head of the church. It is him that unifies us into this one body. And then he introduces his metaphor a little further with some language that honestly probably would have been a little shocking or provocative, maybe a little humorous, even if that wasn't his intent, because it's a little weird. This is one of those, like when you're encouraged to read your Bible, this is one of those odd passages that are in the Bible, because he starts to expand his idea. In verse 15, he says, if the foot says, so we have a talking foot in the New Testament, right? If the foot says, I am not a part of the body because I am not a hand, that does not make it any less a part of the body. And if the ear says, I am not a part of the body because I am not an eye, would that make it any less a part of the body? He continues, and then the eye starts speaking. He says, if the whole body were an eye, how would you hear? Or if the whole body were an ear, how would you smell anything? This is not like me just being odd, okay? This is what he is describing here to say the imagery he just described is a body that is an eye, right? Some kind of Monsters, Inc. eye that is in the Bible, right? He's like, if the body were an eye, it should be this shocking, this weird, this unnatural or unrealistic to say I would be a follower of Jesus, but I'm going to go do that on my own in isolation. There are other faiths that are private, that are designed that way. That's not the Christian faith. We're designed to be in community, part of a body, pursuing what God has called us to do in the world together. He continues to expand it. And he says, but our bodies have many parts, and God has put each part just where he wants it. How strange a body would be, at least I appreciate that he calls out the strangeness. How strange a body would be if it had only one part. Yes, there are many parts, but only one body. The eye can never say to the hand, I don't need you. The head can't say to the feet, I don't need you. I want to hone in on verse 19 there, right in the middle, where he calls out the strangeness. He says, how strange a body would be if it only had one part. And I would like to utilize a strange illustration to try to make this point, because I don't know if the text on the screen is just quite shocking enough. So this is either going to be memorable or it's going to be your bad church experience. And you're going to be like, I knew it, pastors are weird. This is why I don't go to church. But the funny part is, I never for a second doubted that Amazon would have everything that I needed here. I just shamelessly searched rubber foot in Amazon, and let me tell you, I had options, right? It's a competitive market. There were a lot of different brands. Now, for some of you, you're already uncomfortable right? Feet, I think, kind of get a bad rep. I mean, we think they're gross. We don't want to see other people's. If you like feet, you're called weird for other reasons. And so, it's just, that's how they're treated. And every single day, if you take your 10,000 steps, your foot absorbs hundreds of tons of force. 25% of the total bone count in your body is in your foot. And if you lose even one of these little guys, your whole body has to compensate, and you have to readjust and learn how to walk again. Have an injury or a surgery to this, and it totally slows down your way of life. Separate from the body, it's weird. Separate from the body, it's just a part that loses its function. We had a speaking eye in our example. If you know, the eye, the iris itself, is 5 times more unique to you than your fingerprint is, which is already unique to you. You don't have to think about the eye adjusting to light and dark. It can see 10 million different colors. And maybe most amazingly and kind of mind-bending is because the eye is curved, light actually enters your eye and is flipped upside down at the back of the retina. So your eye sees the world upside down. Your brain flips it back so you see the world right side up. All of this is happening without us thinking about it. We can't even understand it, and yet our brain is always doing it. Separate from the body, it's a really gross stress ball that probably wouldn't last very long. Your heart pumps blood through 60,000 miles of veins, arteries, and capillaries in your body. That's enough to cover the circumference of the earth almost 3 times inside every single one of us. It is weirdly connected to our emotions, even still a bit mysteriously to doctors. When you laugh, your blood vessels relax and you pump 20% more blood throughout your body. When you go through a heartbreak, it mimics the symptoms of a heart attack. And we all know stress can actually lead to one. Inside of your body, it is an actual miracle. Separate from your body, it becomes the end of the body. This is the last one, I promise, in case you're just like, when is it going to end? Your brain is considered to have unlimited capacity. You may argue with that and be like, no, I forget yesterday. I'm just saying it has unlimited capacity to learn and remember new things. It does utilize all of itself every single day. That myth is a myth about it only being 10% of our brain that we use every day, unfortunately. It makes for good sci-fi novels. It's just not true. Unless I was thinking maybe parents of newborns and toddlers. Maybe we only use 10% of our brain. Maybe that's where the myth started. But 1 grain of sand's worth of brain tissue has 1 billion synapses on it, and it can power a light bulb. Separate from the body, it is a gross paperweight, loses all function. Anybody want this? Anybody lost their mind? And a freshman over here want one or anything? I'll toss it in the front row if you like. You look like you didn't really mean yes, but there we go. Good catch. Okay. We've got an extra one for second service because Amazon gave me a 2-pack. So, for real, I was thinking if you lead like a group, a good icebreaker would be like, what does your Amazon history say about you? Mine is jacked right now. My Google history with like weird feet facts, I expect like the FBI to show up on Monday. It's going to be interesting. But I utilize that and say that to try to bring home the point. You are just a part. That should be humbling and maybe a little bit freeing even. The weight of the world is not on your shoulders. You cannot mess up God's plan for the world on your own. And at the same time, the whole suffers without you. That even the loss of the pinky toe means the heart and the brain and the rest of the muscles in the body have to compensate as a result. This should be validating and perhaps even challenging to you as well, to say each of us has an important role to play in it. What if that is true? There is a type of doctor that specializes in each of these parts. What if you have a gift that can be discovered and cultivated and developed and has an impact on the lives of people that God has placed in your path and in your story? I think so much of this, our realization of the important role we have to play, has to do with our own self-perception, which is tough because we usually don't perceive ourselves accurately. We need other people to reflect things to us. Paul leans into this a little bit more in really some beautiful language here in the next couple of verses because he says, in fact, some parts of the body that seem weakest and least important are actually the most necessary. And the parts we regard as less honorable are those we clothe with the greatest care. So we carefully protect those parts that should not be seen, while the more honorable parts do not require the special care. How validating is that for those of you that have just ever felt overlooked, have ever felt passed over, ever felt not seen, not understood, or maybe a little bit more behind the scenes, feel underappreciated? He says, regardless of how people see and value and appreciate around you, God always sees you. And he understands the essential function, the role, the value that you add, the role that you have to play. And he specifically puts you there for a reason and a purpose. He expands on this in the next verse. He says, so God put the body together such that extra honor and care are given to those parts that have less dignity. This makes for harmony among the members so that all the members care for each other. If one part suffers, all the parts suffer with it. And if one part is honored, all the parts are glad. This almost sounds like a pregame speech or something. We win together and we lose together. We are designed to carry each other's burdens, to mourn together, grieve together, cry together. And we are also designed to celebrate, laugh, have fun, encourage one another together. We are better together, unified under the person of Jesus. And he summarizes the whole metaphor in verse 27 when he says, all of you together are Christ's body, and each of you is a part of it. But this comes right after this section of how important it is that we perceive ourselves, which is why I think it's important to lean in and maybe ask yourself which side of the spectrum you tend to lean on, because we probably go one way or the other, all of us. We look at ourselves, we think about the role we have to play, and we either think one of these two things: I'm not worth the time, or it's not worth my time. I'm not worth the time. Like, I don't know what my gift or talent is. I don't know that I'm that valuable. I don't know that I'm smart enough. I don't know that much about the Bible. I don't know, like, what could I actually contribute? Do they really need me? Or we tend to lean forward. We might not say it exactly this way, but our posture is kind of like, it's not worth my time. Somebody else will take care of that. I'm so demand in my business. I'm so demand in my job. Maybe even know the exact dollar amounts worth of your time. And you're like, I just don't have time to give. Or perhaps it's your children. And you kind of have this subtle belief, maybe you've got the kid that's going to be the first to go pro in 3 different sports. And as we keep them in all the things, we don't have time for this, but somebody else will take care of it. That's somebody else's job. That's the 2004 Olympic team mentality that was the national embarrassment when we start to go that way. I wonder which side you feel like you tend to lean on. And could it be when you lean in what God says is true about you, you realize all of us have a unique and distinct role to play. I want to look at how he finishes this section because many of you, even if you've never been in church before, would be familiar with 1 Corinthians 13, the love chapter. If you've ever been to a wedding and you've heard the long definition of love, love is patient, love is kind, that's what's coming next. Most people don't recognize that 12 and 13 are connected. 12 sets up 13. This idea of your gifts and your role to play, it sets up the why in 13. Because the last verse of chapter 12 says, but now let me show you a way of life that is best of all. Meaning, this idea of serving is not a religious box to check. It's not one more thing to add on to your calendar. It is a way of life. This is that higher plane that I talked about, not just specific to a role in a local church, but this is an approach to all relationships, to all of your time. And he says, as you think about that valuable part you will have to play, don't forget chapter 13, when he starts to list. If I could speak all the languages of the earth and of angels, but didn't love others, I would only be a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. Just noise. If I had the gift of prophecy and if I understood all of God's secret plans and possessed all knowledge, I knew everything. And if I had such faith even that I could move mountains, but didn't love others, I would be nothing. Great faith, but no love. He says, I'm nothing. Is that not shocking to read? Verse 3 says, if I gave everything I have to the poor and even sacrificed my body, I could boast about it, post about it maybe, but if I didn't love others, I would have gained nothing. He says, don't forget, in this role you have to play, it's rooted in and motivated by love. He finishes 13, this whole kind of passage together. 3 things will last forever: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. In other words, we have to be reminded that serving is not one additional box to check on the religious scorecard. This is not, hey, we're watching you, God is watching you. This is not, hey, do these activities so you get in heaven. This is not out of a guilty conscience or kind of begrudgingly. The point of this is to say serving is about a way of life, motivated by love and inspired by the way Christ loves us. You serve in your home. You serve your parents, you serve your siblings, you serve your spouse, you serve your children even. You serve your friends, your coworkers, your neighbors. It is a way of life, an approach to life that is rooted in what Jesus has already done for us. As we reflect on, remember, learn about, or celebrate these next 2 weeks as Easter approaches, what it is that Jesus has done for us, the more we sit in the reality of his life and resurrection, the more that we soak in his love for us, the more the natural response is we love those around us. You are not a stopgap for his love. It does not end with you. It flows through you to others. Otherwise, I would say it's not really love. It's a feeling maybe, perhaps, but love is action-oriented. And the more you understand how much Jesus loves you, the more you start to love others as a result. Maybe most simplified, most memorable, you can say this is the bottom line of the big idea. Service to others is motivated by love for others. It is the why, it is the driver, and it's what leads us into the way of life that is a posture towards all people that Jesus had towards all people. When I first started to try to think about this topic today, I first wrote like a list of motivations, things that I think have motivated me over the years or inspired me over the years. And then what I realized as I went through this passage is they're not so much motivations as potential benefits. The motivation has to be rooted in love, or else we kind of get ourselves in a mess. But as you serve, motivated by love, some of the things you may experience along the way are the impact in someone else's life or the joy you receive from that. You know how many people go through their whole life, like most people go through their whole life without ever hearing the words of, my life has been changed because of you. My marriage has been changed because of you. My parenting, my faith, I don't know where I would be without. Most people never hear those words said back to them in their story. And our volunteers hear that every single week as you are the ones on the front lines investing in people's stories. One of the benefits that you might receive is friendship because it shrinks the size of your local church. Once you're beyond about, 40 people anyways, you can't know everybody in your church as it is. So whether you have a small, medium, or large church, this is the idea to say as you serve alongside people, struggle together, are nervous together, are learning together, and as you're accomplishing something greater together, it forms an incredible bond in friendship. Some of my greatest lifelong friends are just people I have served alongside and struggled alongside for years. It shrinks this place down, and you meet incredible people along the way that you just wouldn't have been introduced to otherwise. One of the potential benefits is that you will learn more than those you serve. This is one of those weird paradoxes that as you prepare and as you think about questions you have and how would I respond to that, as you're a little outside of your comfort zone, as you're trusting God for what he's called you to, you actually end up growing more than the people you are actually serving. I would say your faith is impacted because you start to see people through Jesus' eyes. It is one thing to sit in a row and learn about him that has its place. It's a whole nother thing to actually have to do what Jesus did, to have to exercise that compassion, that empathy, that forgiveness, to lean in, to sacrifice for. And as you do that week after week after week, you begin to understand and know Jesus more fully. And then I would say it's a connection to something bigger than you. When you serve, you're entering into a story that started at the beginning of time, that spans space and time. For whatever reason, when God wants to move in the world and advance his kingdom, he does it through people, broken people that need to depend on him, but he does it through people. And you are inserting yourself into a story that is an eternal story. What could be greater to be a part of in our lives? Bonus reason or bonus benefit for me is it's just a lot of fun. It's a whole lot more fun than listening to somebody speak in a row for 35 minutes. This is where you create the memories and the moments that say, man, I love this place and I love what we're doing in our community. So I said, I want to talk about at that kind of bottom plane what this looks like specifically here, the local expression at Northpoint. For some of you, that might look like something like guest services. If you enjoy people at all, you're a people person, if you have a hospitality background, if you've ever worked at Chick-fil-A, honestly, this is an incredible environment because the stats say that most people walking through the doors decide within 8 seconds subconsciously if they're going to come back next week or not. Is there a vibe? Is there an energy? Is this my place or not? You get to inform what is the first impression of a new guest walking through the door. What if next week, or what if on Easter in 2 weeks, it's your neighbor, it's your sibling, it's your friend, it's your parent walking through the doors? What experience do you want them to have? In guest services, you get to be on the front lines and you get to shape that experience. What if, like Wade said a couple weeks ago up here, that one day Disney, that one day 5-star hotels would come to the church to take notes on how to treat people because we are motivated by love and we set the standard of what that looks like. Maybe for some of you, you enjoy a little bit more behind the scenes. Maybe you are a learner. Maybe you're tech savvy, creative. Maybe you got a theater background, perhaps. Maybe for you, the world is production. And you think about what these people do in all of our environments to create the large group experience where people can just be free of distraction, where people can be inspired, connect with something transcendent. They get to shape that experience every week. And I don't know if you've ever thought about it, but we give them a lot of trust, power, and control. I mean, they decide what all of us see, for example. They can just choose all of these side screens. Like, they're all back there. You can just look at them the whole time. And I do think it's good to clarify, you're allowed to have hair and serve in production as well, okay? They said I could say that. It's incredibly risky to take a shot at them because they can control all of the lights, right? They can control what the room looks like. We could just do this. So it's not a great angle. I could just do the whole thing like this. I mean, they control my mic. They control what I sound like. High, low, payback. I'm just like trusting when I go next slide that it's going to go to the slide I want. I mean, they could put whatever picture they want up there, end my career real quick. So, I mean, I'm just saying, like, these people have just so much skill, talent, creativity, and it is an amazingly fun group to be a part of. And you're shaping experiences every week. Every environment that we have has production. Maybe for you, you were a part of a circle. You were a part of a group that transformed your story or experience. Maybe it was a meetup, a short-term group, a long-term group. For me personally, that's how I have served for about the last decade after I was first in a group. I led a high school group. My wife, Emily, led 3 of them. We led a CG together. We led as well, or currently the last 2 years have been part of a young adults group here at Northpoint. And that's just like how we've chosen to connect and lean in together. Maybe for you, it's creating a space where people can have the two-way conversations, where real life change happens in the context of circles, not just in the context of rows. Maybe for you, it's with the next generation. It's with our family ministry environments here at Northpoint. Wambaland is birthed through pre-K, Upstreet is our elementary school environment, Transit is our middle school environment, and Inside Out is our high school environment here. And I'd love to give you kind of 2 reasons to maybe consider leaning in if this is you, because the reality is here at Northpoint, we have a problem. The problem is that in a normal kind of healthy growing church, the average would be 20% of your church is the next generation of 0 to 18. Here, we average between 40 and 50% of our total church every week is 0 to 18. And we've created that problem because we want to lean into and prioritize and empower the next generation and make faith fun for them. And so as a result, we need about 2 times as many adults as normal to staff all of these areas and environments. If you're like, is there a need? Do they need me? Yes. We're promoting in a couple of months. The next school year is coming in the summer. So yes, in each of those environments. But here's the 2 reasons. One a little bit more theoretical and then one personal. The theoretical leans in this direction. There is maybe the scariest statistic that I've come across my time. My background is in student ministry, and that's that 67% of students after senior year of high school that have grown up in church will walk away for a time in their college years. 2/3 that have grown up in church will walk away. That number is cut in half, becomes 33% if they had 5 adults outside of their parents in their 0 to 18 journey that invested in them. I mean, asking questions like, how was the game this week? How did the big test go this week? Just caring for, praying for, showing up for. It's cut in half. We can cut that in half just by staffing all of our environments. Maybe even more shocking than that, and I want to be careful with the statistics because this next one I'm speaking to an ideal, and I know that the ideal is not possible for every family dynamic, and yet I don't want to miss the opportunity to challenge people for whom it is. That number goes from 67% to 7% if the dad is the spiritual leader of the home and serves in a local church. Meaning even more important than you dropping your kids off in our environments every single week would be you personally serving. That would be the greatest impact you could have if you care about the faith of the next generation or the faith about your children personally. Those are stats, that's theory that moves me, right? And I've got a lot of those kind of things mindlessly from 10 years in student ministry. But the other thing I have as a result of student ministry background, this falls on the more personal front, is hundreds of stories, hundreds of captains' interviews over the year on the side of hundreds of different students. And so on the personal note, when I think about our little guy, it's the last edited picture we'll show, I promise, okay? Man, I thought I would be good, but the picture's so big, and so what I know confidently, I just know we're not the exception. What I know confidently is that not too distant of a future, Davis is going to look in a mirror for the first time, and he's going to feel insecure about what he sees. He's going to wonder why his little muscles aren't big enough. He's going to wonder why that one kid on A-team is so much faster and why that popular kid is so much taller. He's going to go through a heartbreak, and he's not going to have the tools yet to handle that. He's going to wonder what's wrong with him. He's going to wonder if he's not smart enough, if he's not funny enough, why she chose the other guy. He's going to have a bad game, or he's going to ride the bench, or he's not going to make the team. In the not too distant future, he's going to get on a phone and he's going to see all that's happening in the world, and he's going to see murder and hatred and war, and he's going to wonder, is what my dad told me about a good, loving, powerful God true? Or did he just say that to make me feel better? In the not too distant future, he's going to get invited to a party by an upperclassman that is going to be way more influential than his old man. And he's going to wonder if his parents grew up in the Stone Age. And at some point in the future, he's going to mess up. And he's going to mess up big. And in those moments, I need one of you that already have relationship with him to remind him that there is nothing he could ever do that would make his mom or dad love him any less, and that we are a safe space for him to go to. I need one of you to remind him when he just can't hear it from me that there is nothing he could ever do to make Jesus see him any different or love him any less. I'm aware of the responsibility of our voice that we've stepped into as parents, but I just also know we cannot do it alone. We need you. We need the dream team. We need people invested in his life. And Davis is one of 500 that come through here every single week. One of 400,000 kids and students that live in the greater Austin area. And they need one of you to show up, to care for them, to be a safe relationship in their life, to empower them. And as they feel your care for them, perhaps they'll discover that there's a heavenly Father who cares for them as well. I want to take a second both to give you an opportunity to see what serving might actively look like here at Northpoint, just in one specific role. And I also want to just take a second for me to get my act back together. So take a look at this video, and I'll be back up.
What? LeBron is the greatest basketball player of all time.
This is what I have to deal with every week.
Because
Do you believe this?
LeBron wasn't on the Dream Team.
Just
and this says
watch
Dream Team, so I'm
Space-
Jordan in this case.
Just watch
the
Space Jam.
second best player of all time.
Oh my, I'm getting sick.
You guys ready?
No.
You're not
Did you
starting
not hear
this
that?
off on a good foot. Like,
This is what we have to deal with every Sunday.
You guys ready?
yes, please start. I show up and I volunteer Inside Out. There was a message very similar to this message that Buck gave back in 2021, and I felt like I needed to do something. So, I scanned the QR code and filled out the form, and they called like the next day, hey, we've got an opening, with freshman guys. Man, the rest is history. It's a highlight of my week. Just talking with these guys and having fun and having some deep conversations and learning from each other. Yeah, it's awesome.
I was here to help out on stage during one of the messages that Jen gave about missing the mark. And I was here and I was nervous. And just after that message, I just looked around and I was like, this is 14 to 18-year-old, and it brought me back to like what a lonely and hard time that was for myself. And I was like, this is amazing. How can I be a part of this?
Growing up, I always went to church. I was here, I've been here since 3rd grade, so I was here every Sunday. My mom would bring me, drop me off Up Street, then transit, and now here. The whole time I've always tried to just learn something. Like I've always come into the messages or something just trying to maybe learn one little thing about it. So there's a heavenly creator who made us fearfully and wonderfully made us, and he's here for us, and that I can always have someone to talk to, someone to go to, and someone I can rely on. I come back to Inside Out every week just because of the community. So, I mean, it's cool knowing that I have two guys here that have, lived this same time that I have, like high school, going through high school and growing up. In my family, I haven't had a father figure present, and that's just from things that have happened. But I mean, that's how it is. But I think for them showing up every Sunday, it's kind of like they're kind of a father figure for me. They show up for me every Sunday. They're here to support me. They care for me. They love me. They, give me things that I need to learn and need to know as a man and grown up. And they have a lot of wisdom and insight that I might not have yet. So it's good to have people that I can talk to, that they can give me wisdom, and that they're also just kind of like my friend.
Well, that's not nothing. That's a lot. That is a serious thing and a beautiful thing.
That's one of the things I first felt when I volunteered, was kind of the weight and the magnitude of what I was agreeing to do. I think one of the things that Matt said, and he said it several times, is that we're there for them, not as a parent, but as another adult that they can confide in. It's definitely an awesome responsibility, but also super rewarding and very cool.
It means the world to have the opportunity to lead and be there for them. That on a personal journey, also, it's really valuable too. As men who look for purpose in life, and who have self-talk about their value maybe, or look for purpose, meaning, value, worth, that this is a beautiful opportunity that is very worthwhile, and there's a lot of purpose in that as well.
The thing that I've seen is when I'm reading the Bible or when I'm studying for myself, it's one thing, but when I'm reading over the leader notes they send us and preparing for a small group, it takes it to the next level for me, because I want to understand that at a different level where I can teach it to these guys and I can, frame it from their viewpoint and not just mine. So I definitely think that's grown my faith a ton.
It makes you realize that it matters, if that makes sense. We have a great time here at Inside Out. It's always fun, and sometimes it's just chaos, right? the 16-year-old boys, right? So sometimes Trent and I are looking at each other whew, they're in a mood today, or, it was just okay, how helpful was this? But at the end of the day, it's that's what it's about, right? It is that when life happens, and it will, that we are there for them, and that matters.
To me, equally powerful as the impact being made is the fun, the relationship, the laughter you see, because it's real. It's real stories, real relationships, and real life change that is happening. Service to others is ultimately motivated by our love for others. Each of us, I'm convinced, have a role to play. God has put you in a specific spot with a specific skill set. And the dream team right now at Northpoint looks something like this. Looks like the hundreds of people every single week. Sacrifice your time and your talents. This place doesn't, run on magic or wishful thinking, but people who have said yes, who are trusting God with what he's called them to do and discovering something amazing along the way. And how I want to end our time is to give you the opportunity to join this team if you're not a part of it yet. And so what I would ask is that if everybody could humor me, everybody in the room, get your phone out if you have it with you, which I'm assuming you do. Even if you're from out of town, you can do the Wordle of the day. It just makes it easier for the person next to you. If you're currently serving on this form, there's going to be a box to check. I'm currently serving. You can tell us what you love about serving or a way to make it better. So there's something to do if you're already serving. And if you're not, you're going to see the areas, a lot of which we've already talked about here today. And so there's a QR code and a text instruction here. I'm going to do it with you. I'm going to fill it out for my team and my group here. You can text that NP team to 97000 or scan the QR code. And what you're going to see pop up is the Dream Team interest form, which means this does not sign you up or lock you into any commitment here today. This is expressing interest to get more information and finding out what the area or the right fit might be for you. You're going to see a list on there, Wamba through Inside Out, which is what we've already talked about. And just to clarify, that's not just small group leadership. There are production, guest services, admin in each of those as well. Guest services that we talked about, production that we talked about on there, music, which in the kindest way possible is not for people like me. who believe they can sing in the car but have never had that validated by another human being, right? This is like you have a skill set and people have validated that and we can help work and equip and train you, but in the kindest way, just not like elementary school recorder days, like real skills. So music is on there, and all of those are pretty specific to Sunday. There's a box that says opportunities outside of Sunday if this is just not a great consistent time of the week for you, and you get a whole different drop-down menu that happens the other 6 days of the week. So there are admin roles, adult group leadership, which we talked about, event planning. We have so many special weeks and Sundays that happen. We're just a couple weeks away from Easter happening, and Saturday the parking lot gets transformed. Those kinds of events, they're really good for one-off type things. The Exchange ATX team, you heard Bailey talk about in our vision moment today. It's how we open our building Monday through Saturday to serve and benefit our community, and you can be a part of partnering with us and partnering with our community to love them well Monday through Saturday. Marketing social media is a growing need in our digital age. If you have skills there and you'd be willing to volunteer your time, there's also just a box that says not sure. Something else. We have a guy who does project management at Apple, and he comes in and volunteers his time and trains our teams. If you have a specific skill set where you're like, I'm not sure where this fits, but I want to help and leverage my expertise, you can tell us what that is there as well. So I want to give you maybe 30 or 45 seconds to do that, and then of course you can sit after the service and continue to fill that out as well. But just to capture the moment in it right now, we'll give you a little bit of time, and then I'll pray us out. Thank you guys so much for taking the second to do that. Of course, that form will stay open as well. Our commitment to you is in the next 48 hours, in the next 2 days, someone from our team will get back to you and just help you along that process and journey, get you information, and find the spot that might be the best fit for you. I'd love to end this time by praying together. Father, thank you. Thank you that you are here present in this room with us. Thank you for the unique gifts, talents, and skills you've given everybody here in the room, whether they've discovered it yet or not, that there's a calling on each of our lives to be a part of something bigger than ourselves. God, would you give us just that courage to take that step? It means taking something off of our busy schedules and replacing it. I know that. But God, the sacrifice, I'm so convinced, is worth it. And we just want to hear from you where it is that you have each of us individually. God, I'm grateful for this time, this moment, and this amazing dream team. I know you love them even more than I do, God, and we're grateful for that. It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen. Thank you guys so much for hanging with us. We'll see you next week.